On Tuesday, June 4th at around 10:33 p.m., the Bladen County, North Carolina police received a call about shots fired on the 100 block of Dixon Road in Riegelwood, North Carolina. Upon arriving on the scene, 33-year-old Bolivia Monnique Williams was found with multiple gunshot wounds. Unfortunately, she was pronounced dead at the scene.
On June 4th, 2024, at 8:36 p.m., a frantic 12-year-old boy called 911. "Someone shot my mom, please hurry. She's bleeding a lot." By the time paramedics arrived, Bolivia Monnique Williams, 33 years old and 25 weeks pregnant with her sixth child, was fighting for her life. Both she and her unborn son, already named Isaiah James, would be pronounced dead at 9:38 p.m. As investigators processed the blood-spattered living room, they uncovered a chilling truth. The killer wasn't a stranger, but Najee Devon Leach, the father of her unborn baby, who had just celebrated their gender reveal party weeks earlier. Bolivia Monnique Williams was born on March 10, 1991, in Columbus County, North Carolina, to Peggy Blanks and Michael Williams. From early childhood, Bolivia was known for her vibrant personality and joyful spirit. She radiated positivity wherever she went, touching the lives of those around her with her genuine warmth and infectious energy. As she grew, Bolivia developed a deep passion for dancing and had a natural ability to uplift those around her. Her energy was contagious, and her presence left a lasting impact. This love for movement and expression would remain with her throughout her life, becoming one of the many ways she found joy even during difficult times. Bolivia also loved social media, often sharing snapshots of her life through photos and videos. Her online presence reflected her bright spirit and her love for connecting with others. Through these platforms, she showcased not just the happy moments, but also her resilience in facing life's challenges. Bolivia attended Southeastern Community College, where she left a lasting impression with her vibrant energy and strong work ethic. That same lively spirit followed her into adulthood, where she pursued her passion for business and became an entrepreneur. To those who knew her, Bolivia's sense of style was always on point, turning heads wherever she went. But beyond the fun and fashion, Bolivia was deeply compassionate and generous. She treated everyone with kindness and respect, giving love freely and sincerely. Her capacity for caring extended beyond her immediate family to everyone she encountered, making her a beloved figure in her community. By the time she was 33, Bolivia was the proud mother of 5 children, whose ages ranged from toddlers to teenagers. While her path to motherhood had its complications, one thing remained constant: her dedication to her children. They became the center of her universe, the motivation behind everything she did. Bolivia's days began at 5:30 a.m., preparing breakfast and lunches before waking her children for school. After the drop-offs, she would tackle household management, budgeting, appointments, and keeping their modest home running smoothly. She worked tirelessly to provide for her family, often sacrificing her own needs to ensure her children had what they needed. Despite facing financial hardship, Bolivia made sure all her children's needs were met. She prioritized their happiness, creating fun experiences like backyard camping trips. Even with limited resources, she turned their backyard into a campsite for weekend adventures, organized homemade birthday celebrations with heartfelt touches, and hosted spontaneous dance parties in their living room. Bolivia understood each of her children individually, recognizing their personalities and specific needs. She created structure in their lives with routines such as group homework at the kitchen table, movie nights on weekends, and Sunday dinners, where everyone put away their phones to focus on family. These consistent habits helped provide stability in a household that sometimes faced uncertainty. To Bolivia, motherhood wasn't a burden, it was her life's purpose. She worked hard to ensure her children received a good education and was present at every school event, no matter how busy she was. Whether it was a parent-teacher conference or a school performance, Bolivia made it a priority to be there, showing her children that they were her top priority. Supporting Bolivia every step of the way was her mother, Peggy Blanks. More than just a grandmother, Peggy was Bolivia's rock and trusted confidant. Their relationship wasn't just mother and daughter. It was a strong, unwavering partnership, rooted in love and their shared devotion to raising Bolivia's kids. 3 times a week, Peggy would arrive with home-cooked meals and stay to help with the bedtime routines. During school breaks, she'd take the older children to her home, giving Bolivia the chance to rest and recharge. Their phone calls were a constant, multiple times a day, quick check-ins to stay connected amidst their busy lives. Bolivia's home might not have been filled with expensive things, but it was rich with love and laughter. She taught her children the value of gratitude and how to find joy in simple moments. She showed them that happiness wasn't about what you owned, but about the connections you built and the love you shared. She created family traditions that didn't cost money but built lasting memories, nature walks, storytelling nights, and cooking sessions where she passed down family recipes. These activities weren't just about entertainment. They were about building bonds that would sustain her children through whatever life brought their way. By early 2023, Bolivia had created a life centered around her 5 children. She wasn't actively looking for romance. Her hands and heart were already full with the responsibilities of raising her family. Her focus was on providing stability and love for her children, working to improve their circumstances and building a foundation for their future success. However, fate had other plans when she met Najee Devon Leach through mutual acquaintances at a community gathering. He appeared warm and thoughtful, always knowing the right thing to say. These traits immediately stood out to Bolivia, who rarely received personal attention amid the demands of raising 5 children. Little did she know that this encounter would set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately lead to that tragic night in June 2024. When a mother's life was cut short, 5 children lost the center of their world, and her unborn son would never take his first breath. By early 2023, Najee Devon Leach had already integrated himself into Bolivia's life. He often praised her dedication as a mother, telling her that her maternal instincts were one of the qualities he admired most. "Your maternal instincts are something special," he told her. "Not many women could handle what you do every day." These words resonated deeply with Bolivia, who carried the weight of single motherhood largely without recognition. Within just 3 months of meeting, Bolivia and Najee were officially a couple. Their relationship progressed quickly, with Najee presenting himself as a potential partner who could provide the stability and support Bolivia had been managing without. It felt like the beginning of a beautiful new chapter, one where Bolivia wouldn't have to carry all her burdens alone. Najee gradually became a steady part of Bolivia's family life. He started by getting to know her older children before becoming a regular presence on weekends. He offered hands-on support, giving rides to the kids, helping with groceries, and even pitching in financially when he could. To many, he seemed like a supportive and dependable figure, someone genuinely invested in Bolivia and her family's well-being. He began by spending time with Bolivia when the children were at school or with their grandmother. Then he started joining family movie nights and attending school events with Bolivia. By the fall of 2023, Najee had become a familiar presence in Bolivia's home. The children had grown accustomed to seeing him there, and Bolivia had begun to depend on his help. When the car broke down, he arranged repairs. When bills piled up, he contributed to the household expenses. It wasn't long before the couple learned they were expecting a child together. At first, Bolivia felt overwhelmed. Adding a 6th child to an already full house meant even tighter finances, less space, and more responsibilities. But once the initial shock settled, Bolivia met the moment with her usual strength and commitment to her family. Her children had mixed reactions. The youngest didn't quite understand what a new baby meant, while the older ones showed curiosity and even excitement. Bolivia made sure to ease their worries with gentle reassurance, promising that her love for them wouldn't diminish with the new arrival. As her pregnancy progressed, Bolivia cleared out a corner of their small dining area, transforming it into a cozy makeshift nursery. She began collecting baby essentials, often buying items second-hand to save money. Her social media posts reflected her growing excitement, with captions about the blessing of new life and her hopes for the future. For Bolivia, this baby represented not just another child to love, but the possibility of a complete family unit with a present father figure. She envisioned a future where Najee would be there for middle-of-the-night feedings, first steps, and school plays, experiences her other children had largely had without a dad in the picture. But as Bolivia's belly grew, so did the troubling aspects of Najee's personality. The first signs were subtle. A frown when Bolivia spent too long talking to a male cashier, questions about who had texted her, insistence on knowing her whereabouts. These behaviors were easily explained away as concern, but they marked the beginning of a controlling pattern. Najee's involvement in Bolivia's life quickly became inconsistent. Some weeks he was fully present, while other weeks he disappeared, without explanation, leaving Bolivia to juggle everything alone. This unpredictability caused her significant anxiety, especially as she grew more dependent on his help. Bolivia gave the relationship her all, while Najee kept his emotional distance. She began altering her appearance to suit his tastes, rearranging her schedule to be more available, and pulling back from some of her closest friendships. It was clear she was doing everything she could to make the relationship work. The relationship operated on Najee's terms, with Bolivia often adjusting her behavior to avoid conflict. He showed intense jealousy over her interactions with men, even her children's teachers. He frequently checked her phone and questioned her whereabouts. His manipulation tactics were textbook. He'd stir up conflict, shut down emotionally to punish her, then return with over-the-top affection once she apologized, often for things that weren't her fault. But it wasn't just Bolivia who suffered. His interactions with her children revealed deeper issues. He played favorites, setting different standards for each child, which led to growing tension at home. When upset with Bolivia, he sometimes withheld affection from the kids as well. Financial control crept in slowly. Najee began by covering bills, then used that support as leverage during arguments. Bolivia's isolation deepened as she skipped family events if Najee couldn't go, gradually cutting herself off from the very support system she needed most. On May 19, 2024, Bolivia and Najee hosted a gender reveal in her backyard. A small gathering watched as blue confetti poppers burst in the air, and a cake with "It's a Boy" in blue icing confirmed the baby's gender. Bolivia looked radiant in photos, her hand resting protectively on her belly. She had already chosen a name, Isaiah James. Those who attended couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with Najee. While he smiled, it didn't reach his eyes. He stood slightly apart as loved ones embraced Bolivia. Guests noticed his distant behavior, minimal interaction, and constant glances at his phone. Bolivia interpreted his quiet demeanor as nerves about fatherhood, but for Najee, the celebration marked a turning point where the pregnancy became undeniably real and the weight of responsibility began to sink in. After the celebration, Bolivia started discussing practical matters, adding Najee's name to the birth certificate and potential child support arrangements. These conversations clashed with Najee's apparent preference to keep the relationship casual and undefined. As Bolivia's due date drew closer, the tension between them grew. She wanted commitment and clarity. He seemed to want freedom and flexibility. Their arguments became more frequent and intense, often centered around expectations for after the baby's arrival. With just weeks left in her pregnancy, Bolivia found herself in a deteriorating relationship with a man whose true character was nothing like the supportive figure he had initially presented. The dream of a complete family was fading, replaced by the harsh reality of a partner who seemed increasingly resentful of the very future she had been so excited to build. What Bolivia didn't know was that behind his increasingly erratic behavior, Najee was harboring darker thoughts. His browser history would later reveal searches for how to disappear in countries without extradition, dating back 2 weeks before the murder. While Bolivia was preparing a nursery for their son, Najee was secretly planning an escape from responsibility, from fatherhood, and ultimately from the consequences of what he was about to do. June 4, 2024 began like any other day for Bolivia Monnique Williams. She woke up at her usual time of 5:30 a.m., moving quietly through her morning routine to avoid waking her children. She prepared breakfast, packed lunches, and laid out clothes, before gently rousing her 5 children for school. By 7:30 a.m., Bolivia had completed the school drop-offs and returned home. She spent some time tidying the house and preparing for her prenatal appointment later that morning. At 25 weeks pregnant, these regular checkups had become an important part of her routine. She took a moment to snap a photo of her growing baby, posting it with the caption, "Little man is getting bigger every day, baby Isaiah sucked at 25 weeks." At 10 a.m., Bolivia arrived at her prenatal appointment. The ultrasound showed her baby boy was developing well. The heartbeat was strong and all measurements were on track. Her doctor noted her blood pressure was slightly elevated, but not concerning enough to take action. Bolivia mentioned some discomfort from the baby's increased movement, but was assured this was normal. She left the appointment with her next visit scheduled and a small printout of the ultrasound image. Following her appointment, Bolivia went grocery shopping, carefully selecting items while adhering to her tight budget. Store security cameras would later confirm her presence there between 2:15 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. During this time, phone records show 3 calls between Bolivia and Najee. The content of those conversations remains unknown, but witnesses at the store later reported that Bolivia seemed agitated after one call, pausing in an aisle to collect herself before continuing her shopping. By 6 p.m., Bolivia had returned home and prepared dinner. Her mother, Peggy Blanks, had picked up the 2 youngest children for the evening, leaving Bolivia at home with her 3 older children. She texted her mother a photo of the dinner she'd made with the message, "Save some for you for tomorrow at EE." Approximately 7:15 p.m., neighbors reported seeing Najee pull up to Bolivia's home in his black sedan. He entered without knocking, suggesting he was expected or had a key. At 7:45 p.m., Bolivia's oldest child left to stay with a friend for a school project, something later confirmed by text messages on Bolivia's phone. This left Bolivia at home with Najee and her 2 children, ages 12 and 10, who were watching television in a back bedroom. What happened next would be pieced together from multiple sources: the children's accounts, neighbor statements, and physical evidence. Around 8:20 p.m., neighbors heard raised voices coming from inside the home. The argument between Bolivia and Najee escalated quickly, becoming loud enough that the children turned up the volume on their television to drown out the sound. Bolivia's 12-year-old later told investigators that he heard his mother say, "You can't just walk away from this responsibility," followed by Najee shouting something inaudible in response. The boy reported hearing a crash, like something had been knocked over, which prompted him to lower the television volume momentarily. At approximately 8:32 p.m., neighbors heard a series of 4 to 5 gunshots in rapid succession. One neighbor described the sound as sharp cracks that couldn't be mistaken for anything else. At 8:33 p.m., this neighbor called 911 reporting, "I just heard 4 or 5 gunshots from next door. It's the house with the blue shutters on Dixon Road." Just 3 minutes later, at 8:36 p.m., Bolivia's 12-year-old son made a second 911 call. His voice trembling, he told the dispatcher, "Someone shot my mum. Please hurry. She's bleeding a lot." The dispatcher stayed on the line, guiding the boy, to apply pressure to Bolivia's wounds while his 10-year-old sibling watched in horror. The panic in the boy's voice led the dispatcher to upgrade the call to highest priority. Police arrived at the home at 8:41 p.m., followed by paramedics at 8:44 p.m. Inside the living room, they found 33-year-old pregnant Bolivia Williams suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to her chest and abdomen. Her 2 children, ages 12 and 10, were by her side, following the dispatcher's instructions and doing their best to help. Paramedics worked quickly to stabilize Bolivia and her unborn baby. Despite their efforts, Bolivia's condition deteriorated rapidly. They made the urgent decision to transport her to Columbus Regional Healthcare System, where medical staff continued resuscitation attempts. Despite every effort to save them, both Bolivia and her unborn son were pronounced dead at 9:38 p.m. Back at the crime scene, investigators began documenting the tragic aftermath. Blood had soaked through the living room carpet and splattered across family photos on the wall. 5 9mm shell casings were recovered, scattered near the entryway to the living room. The front door showed no signs of forced entry, indicating Bolivia likely knew her attacker. In the kitchen, 2 untouched dinner plates and partially filled glasses suggested the evening had started calmly. Bolivia's purse was emptied on the counter, her wallet still containing cash, but her car keys were missing. A broken picture frame displaying a photo from the recent gender reveal party lay shattered on the floor, the glass fractured directly over Najee's face in the image, a chilling metaphor for the broken promises and shattered future. Most telling, of all, Najee was nowhere to be found, and Bolivia's gold 2006 Subaru Forester was missing from the driveway. Investigators immediately issued a bolo, be on the lookout, for both Najee and the vehicle, launching a manhunt that would mobilize multiple law enforcement agencies across the state. As the first terrible night without Bolivia began, her children were brought to the sheriff's office where child specialists gently interviewed them while awaiting their grandmother. Peggy Blanks arrived, collapsing in grief when officers confirmed the worst. Through her tears, she managed to ask the question that would echo throughout the investigation: how could he do this to her? After fleeing Bolivia's home, Najee Devon Leach's movements became erratic but intentional. Traffic cameras captured him running a red light at 8:43 p.m., just minutes after the shooting. He avoided main highways, opting instead for back roads through Columbus County. Investigators would later trace his escape route through a combination of surveillance footage, witness sightings, and digital footprints. Gas station footage captured Najee at 9:17 p.m., purchasing a prepaid phone, water, and energy drinks, paying with cash to avoid traceable card transactions. The attendant later noted that Najee appeared calm, but kept glancing outside at the vehicle. By 10:30 p.m., cell tower data placed him roughly 45 miles from the crime scene, heading toward South Carolina. Najee made 3 calls from his original phone before discarding it in a roadside ditch. Investigators later recovered the phone using GPS data. Instead of continuing south, he unexpectedly doubled back toward Wilmington, North Carolina, suggesting he had a predetermined destination rather than fleeing randomly. At 1:17 a.m. on June 5th, approximately 5 hours after the murder, Najee made his only public statement via a cryptic Facebook post: "To love me but gone thug me." This message became a crucial piece of evidence regarding his mindset, suggesting feelings of betrayal and that he believed Bolivia had wronged him despite his feelings for her. The post drew immediate responses from friends who were still unaware of the tragic events. Some expressed concern, others confusion. He didn't respond to any comments, but investigators confirmed he viewed the replies before abandoning his social media presence. Najee's physical transformation began about 3 hours after the murder. Security footage from a 24-hour discount store showed him purchasing scissors, hair clippers, a baseball cap, and new clothes at 11:42 p.m. In the store's bathroom, he cut off his distinctive shoulder-length dreadlocks, which had been his signature style for years. He disposed of the hair in various trash cans throughout the store to prevent it being found together. The store manager discovered the hair remnants during morning cleaning and contacted authorities after seeing news reports. This drastic change altered his appearance significantly, with comparison between his driver's license photo and post-haircut images revealing a dramatically different person. In addition to cutting his dreadlocks, Najee changed his usual clothing style, abandoning his preference for bright colors and brand-name items in favor of more nondescript attire. He also removed several recognizable gold chains and a watch that friends associated with him. The breakthrough in locating Najee came through a combination of technology and traditional police work. Around 5:30 a.m. on June 5th, a convenience store clerk in Brunswick County recognized him despite the haircut and clothing changes. Although the clerk waited until Najee left to contact police, they provided key details about the direction he was headed and confirmed he was still driving Bolivia's gold Subaru. Around the same time, investigators discovered Najee had reached out to a former co-worker, asking for a place to stay under the pretense of having relationship problems. The co-worker grew suspicious after seeing news reports and immediately contacted authorities. The most crucial lead came at 11:23 a.m. when Najee attempted to withdraw money from an ATM using his debit card, an electronic breadcrumb that pinpointed his location. Officers quickly tracked him to a Wilmington motel, where he had checked in under his cousin's name. At 3:15 p.m. on June 5th, just 19 hours after the murder, Tactical officers apprehended Najee as he returned to the motel room. He surrendered, without incident, appearing worn down and defeated. A loaded 9mm handgun was recovered from Bolivia's stolen vehicle, the same firearm later confirmed through ballistic testing as the murder weapon. Forensic examination of the weapon revealed partial fingerprints that matched Najee's, despite his attempts to wipe it clean. This evidence directly contradicted his initial claim that the shooting was accidental. The angle of Bolivia's wounds and the number of shots fired further supported the conclusion that this was an intentional, calculated act rather than a mishap. Najee remained silent during transport to Bladen County, invoking his right to legal counsel. When questioned later with his attorney present, he showed little emotion, maintaining his story about an accidental discharge despite the mounting evidence against him. On June 6, 2024, Najee Devon Leach appeared before a judge in Bladen County for his first court hearing. Prosecutors swiftly filed multiple charges: first-degree murder, murder of an unborn child, felony discharge of a weapon into occupied property, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and motor vehicle theft. Given the severity of the crimes and his attempt to flee, the judge ordered Najee held without bond. District Attorney John David addressed the media outside the courthouse. This case represents the most heinous type of crime: intimate partner, violence resulting in the death of not just Ms. Williams, but also her unborn child. Our office will pursue justice with every resource available. When questioned about potential penalties, David confirmed his office was considering seeking the death penalty. On June 27, 2024, during Najee's arraignment, the district attorney formally charged him with 6 felony counts, each carrying the possibility of life in prison or the death penalty. Beyond the charges of first-degree murder and murder of an unborn child, Najee also faced counts of possession of a firearm by a felon based on a 2019 conviction for assault, along with grand theft auto, felony discharge of a weapon into occupied property, and tampering with evidence. Under North Carolina law, specific aggravating factors can elevate a murder case to qualify for capital punishment. The district attorney listed 3. First, the murder was committed during the commission of another felony. Second, the victim was pregnant. And third, the crime displayed exceptional cruelty. A special hearing was set for August 2024 to decide whether prosecutors would officially seek the death penalty. Najee's defense team preemptively filed motions contesting the constitutionality of capital punishment, referencing previously undiagnosed mental health conditions. The outcome of that hearing would significantly affect the case's timeline, as capital cases typically take 3 times longer to resolve, prolonging justice and closure for Bolivia's grieving family. On Saturday, June 15th, a funeral service was held for Bolivia at Central Baptist Church in Whiteville, North Carolina. It was a deeply emotional gathering as family, friends, and community members came together to honor her life and mourn her tragic passing. The church overflowed with hundreds of attendees, many wearing blue ribbons, the color that would have welcomed baby Isaiah. Bolivia's casket was surrounded by photographs capturing her vibrant smile and joyful moments with her children. A single ultrasound image of baby Isaiah was framed alongside them. 5 white roses, one for each of her surviving children, were placed atop the casket, a symbol of the legacy she left behind. Peggy blanks, supported by family members on either side, delivered a moving eulogy that focused on Bolivia's dedication to motherhood and her unwavering love for her children. "My daughter lived for her babies," she said through tears. "And now, I will live for them too." She promised to keep Bolivia's memory alive for her grandchildren and to raise them with the same love and devotion their mother had shown. In the days following Bolivia's death, the community rallied around her family. Neighbors in Regalwood held a candlelight vigil that drew more than 300 attendees. Local businesses also stepped up, helping establish a trust fund for the children that raised $47,000 in just 2 weeks. Peggy launched a GoFundMe campaign that brought in additional support for the children's ongoing care, funeral costs, and their future needs. "We want to ensure that these children have the stability and resources to move forward despite this unimaginable loss," said the organizer of the trust fund. Bolivia always put her children first, and now it's our turn to honor her by doing the same. Peggy took on guardianship of all 5 of Bolivia's children, moving them into her small 2-bedroom home, while actively searching for a larger space to accommodate the family. The transition was challenging, particularly for the older children who understood the finality of their mother's absence. Counselors were brought in to help the children process their grief and trauma, especially the 2 who had witnessed the aftermath of the shooting. Bolivia's death sparked action beyond individual support. The Columbus County Board of Commissioners approved increased funding for domestic violence prevention and emergency shelter services in direct response to her case. The additional resources would help expand crisis intervention, provide legal advocacy, and improve emergency housing options for victims fleeing dangerous situations. Local schools implemented new curriculum addressing healthy relationships and warning signs of domestic violence for older students. Community workshops were organized to educate residents about the escalation patterns in abusive relationships and available resources for those in need. Women's advocacy groups launched a public awareness campaign titled For Bolivia, aimed at educating people in abusive or unsafe relationships about the resources available to them. Billboards throughout the county displayed the domestic violence hotline number, alongside a message about recognizing warning signs before it's too late. The tragedy highlighted how domestic violence often escalates during pregnancy, a fact many advocacy groups emphasized in their educational outreach. Statistics showing that homicide is a leading cause of death for pregnant women became part of the conversation about Bolivia's case, transforming her personal tragedy into a powerful call for awareness and action. As the legal process against Najee continued, Bolivia's legacy lived on through her children. Her oldest daughter showed her mother's same determination in school, her sons carried Bolivia's compassionate spirit, and her youngest exhibited her joyful personality. Though they would grow up without their mother's physical presence, they were surrounded by a community committed to honoring her memory. Peggy often told the children stories about their mother, her laughter, her dancing, her unconditional love for them. "Your mama lives in each of you," she would say. "Every time you dance, every time you laugh, every time you love fiercely, that's her spirit shining through." The case of Bolivia Monnique Williams stands as a stark reminder of how domestic violence can escalate to the unthinkable, but also how a community can come together in the aftermath of tragedy. Her story continues to motivate change, inspire awareness, and most importantly, serve as a catalyst for preventing similar tragedies in the future.